Fade. Hello and welcome to the extremely expensive Red Dwarf audio CD.
Cassette. Yes.
With me is Rob Grant, writer, creator, an all-round good guy. Ed Bye, director, producer, and also all-round good guy.
I'm nodding.
And me, Doug Naylor.
All-round good guy.
Good guy.
Probably, yeah. Said with a certain amount of reluctance.
And we're going to talk about Red Dwarf.
Yes, we are.
Now, the first thing is, the question that fans are always asking is, what is that question?
Why?
Why Red Dwarf? Why at all?
Is it me, or have we done this introduction about 4 or 5 times? Haven't we done this bit?
Yeah.
No, it's all right. We'll cut that bit out.
Okay.
So the genesis of Red Dwarf, I think that's what we should really talk about. How did Red Dwarf happen in the first place? And it started way, way back as an idea that came from a radio show. And Rob, you can pick it up from here.
Now, did it start there, or did it start before then? Did it start when we saw Darkstar in Sale? Did
And
it
decided
start
to
then?
rip it off.
And decided to rip it off. I
I
remember...
think maybe we should come in at a different angle.
No, I didn't. No, I mean, we didn't decide to rip it off, but I remember seeing Darkstar, we watched it, and then we decided to go out to the pub afterwards. And I remember climbing into the car, and we were having this conversation where we're both standing up and just our heads were over the car. And I said, I just can't for the life of me understand why no one's done a sitcom like that. And I remember you saying, yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? And we got into the car, drove up to the pub. I didn't have a conversation like that again for about 3-4 years.
But that's interesting. Your heads were over the car.
Yeah,
like
that
they
was
do in
probably
the
a really
X-Files.
boring detail, but I just...
No,
it was
it's one of those moments that's frozen
yes,
for you, isn't
yes,
it?
it is, yeah.
It's almost like you're seeing it from a third perspective.
Yes, yeah. And that's weird. Because saying that, and then... Yeah, weird.
I did very much enjoy Darkstar and
Fantastic.
Dan O'Bannon stuff in general. I mean,
Yeah.
the original
Alien
script.
Yeah, fantastic.
Because actually what he did do first, in my opinion, was he had people in space who were like people.
Yeah.
And not, stiff waxwork,
Yeah.
military-esque kind of people from the upper middle classes.
I mean, that was the joke, wasn't it? That these guys were just completely bored out of their head and normal, ordinary guys. And, of course, if you're up there, you're going to tell the same stories over and over again, and everyone's going to get on everyone's nerves.
One of the strongest elements of Darkstar for me was the man who accidentally was on board the ship. He wasn't supposed to be there at all. And
He was a cleaner.
he was, yeah.
Yeah.
And he goes around boringly telling
Achenbach.
everybody,
Achenbach.
that he's not supposed to be there, and it was a mistake, and he was doing some maintenance, and it took off, and he's not part of the crew, and everything else.
Yeah.
And that's a sort of ringing tone to Red Dwarf in a way.
Yes, it is. Also, Lost in
Like
Space. Who's that?
The scum monkey.
Who's
Lost
that?
in Space?
Yeah, Lost in Space. Who was the snotty one in Lost in Space?
Dr.
Smith.
Zachary
Dr.
Smith.
Smith, yeah. Because there's a bit of rimmer in there, isn't there?
You both lawyers, isn't it?
This, ladies and gentlemen,
yeah,
we have to
yeah,
stress
yeah.
is retrospective only. The idea was a
Influences,
newly
'cause-
formed little egg from your own minds, but influence is clearly Darkstar.
But people say, oh, was it Hitchhikers? Oh, was it Doctor Who? It wasn't. It was.
My recollection, it was Darkstar. When you were talking
Also-
about it, this is what it was a
Yeah.
sort of template.
And Silent Running, maybe was with
the Doug Trumbull movie.
yeah,
Bruce Dern.
Bruce Dern, and those what were those two little
Huey,
robots?
Louie,
Huey
and
and Louie and Dewey. Yeah, 3 robots. Yeah.
I answer all the questions here.
Yeah, it's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really
See how my memory of a goldfish.
So, Rob, leaving the goldfish behind, when you then were writing for a radio show, which was what? When
It was Son of Cliche, and
Son of Cliche.
it was a sketch show we used to write wholly on our own. And in fact, Chris Barry was one of the cast in that.
He was.
And I remember I'd been going on to Doug for ages that we should write a science fiction sketch. And this was we got to 3 o'clock in the morning.
It was about 20 minutes, wasn't it? My memory of it was about 20 minutes.
20 minutes what?
Were you going, let's write a science fiction sketch?
Oh,
No, on and on.
Right.
On and on. You know, like every time you sit down and sort of compile a list of ideas
Yes,
for the
you go.
sketch show, I say, how about a science fiction one?
And what would I say?
And you'd say, nothing really. I don't really recall you ever sort of, I never had an idea. Just let's do a science fiction one. And I don't think you were very up for it.
I don't
Maybe
know
you thought
anything
people
about
did-
science fiction.
Right, that's probably
That
what it
probably
was.
Like, so it was like, well, tell me what this science fiction thing is.
And
Show me
so,
more of this thing called... Yeah.
so this was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and we were going into rehearsals with the show at 10 o'clock the following day to record it in the evening.
We don't usually work under that kind of...
That was such a bald-faced lie that it silenced everyone.
You see, you could have gone, no, of course not. It was extraordinary.
Yeah, but I couldn't bring myself to do it.
No, you couldn't. No.
Right,
So
so,
there we are.
as usual,
Yeah.
you're
As
writing under an intensive deadline.
Intensive deadline.
Intense, and we had to, I mean, all these people were going to turn up to record a show that, as yet, only half existed, and
Why? Can we just talk about why? Why did we ever allow ourselves to get in that situation? Because it's insane.
it is,
It's absolutely insane.
we did have a problem where we would always be looking for a better idea.
Yes.
All the time.
Yes.
You think, oh, that's not good
Yes.
enough. No.
And this is radio as opposed to TV. Obviously, you can't do this with TV because... No, you can't.
No, you can't.
You've
You
got
can't
to have the
because-
script in at least 40 minutes before it... No, I mean, you can't because it's,
people
it's
would like to know what room it's in.
with radio, I mean, all you need is some sound effects and the cast, and then they can read the script. They don't even need to know the lines.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you've, that late scripts are not something that's a feature with you
No,
guys on
I
television?
consider them wholly unprofessional, and I would have nothing to do with late scripts normally. But
If I could remind you... No, I won't.
No, what?
What?
Do you know a story about late scripts?
No.
No.
It depends what you mean by late. If you mean after you've done it, sure, that's late. Anything before then I guess that's probably okay.
No, so there's that. There was, I think, at the time we were doing a lot of work for not very much money all over the place to try and eat.
That was an interesting thing. We couldn't say no to anybody, could we?
No.
We said yes to everybody.
Yeah.
Because we were terrified if you ever said no, then they would not like you and then you wouldn't work. And
was
so we
right.
said yes to everybody, and so we had an enormous workload.
So that was partly it.
That was partly it, yeah.
And then so just reining you in here, pulling you back off that tangent
3
just for a
o'clock in the
second.
morning.
Right.
It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and you said
We've got
to
to.
Doug,
We've
let's
got
do a science fiction.
We've got to turn
Doug
up with
said
this.
no.
We've
No,
not
I
only got
said
to.
no.
We've not only got to turn up
no.
with this script for
I said
rehearsals.
why?
We've got to travel in. So there's that time's knocked off. You've got to travel in.
Yeah.
You've got to have it typed up so it can be read, and copies made of it.
And we used to do the photocopying, didn't we?
We had to do everything.
Yeah, because the scripts were so late.
Yes. Exactly. And so, we didn't have a word processor at the time, so it was just typed, and then it had to be typed and mimeographed,
yes, of
and it was all
course,
very
yes.
complicated. And so it was a complete nightmare. We had like 3 hours to write half a show in. And I said, we should write this science fiction idea. And Doug said, okay, go, let's do it. And I didn't know what to do. I just didn't know what to. I thought, all right, you bastard. And so we wrote this sketch, which is about the last human being left alive on a ship that's been rampaged by an alien.
Yeah, it was Dave Holland's Space Cadet, but which was sort of a parody of Alien, wasn't it?
Sort of. When it started out.
Parody of Alien.
Yeah, because it was sort of after Alien had wiped out the crew, but instead of it being a woman, it was a guy, and he was going slowly space crazy because he just had his computer to keep him company.
Yeah.
And this is the genesis of Red Dwarf.
Yeah, so when it came to, we finished the radio series and we finished working on Spitting Image, and we decided that it was time for us to write our own TV sitcom. And we wanted to take one of the ideas from
Son of Cliff.
Son of Cliché, which has sort of regular featured mini sitcoms in it, and Dave Holland's Space Cadet was one of them. And our favourite one, the biggest hit, was Captain Invisible and the See-Through Kid, which was about two superheroes who couldn't see each other or find the invisible car.
Or any of the invisible gadgets.
Or see the invisible sign from the commissioner when he was calling them in. There was a great mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
Yeah, I was about to say that. And you can probably guess what happened.
Kid, where are your teeth?
Right.
And
Now-
we really seriously toyed with the idea of doing that as our first sitcom. We're trying to think of a way of shooting the Invisible Kid.
It's very cheap. Very cheap. And easy to make.
Yeah.
Starring an invisible man and an invisible kid.
Yeah.
Animation, or shoot them so that no one else can see them and we can see them. But
They didn't know where they were, either of them, did they?
They could never find each other.
Well, and it was like, okay, kid, let's go, and they'd both be sitting in the back of the car.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then, so we abandoned that, and then we thought there was another little mini sitcom we did called ASO, Spanish Detective,
That's our Spanish detective.
which I loved.
Yes.
It was about this detective who was stuck on this small Spanish island, a private detective, and he was hopelessly out of time, and he had like big wing collars that were so big and sharp that he would wheel round and scar people on the face and slice the necks. And he had flares that were so huge he would get flare whiplash whenever it was windy, and platforms shoes that he used to fall off on.
That's right.
And he used to go and he'd be in the middle of a story and he'd have the wrong flashback.
Somebody else's flashback.
So we seriously thought of doing that as well, but we couldn't sort of compress it into a sort of a viable sitcom thing, and also it was xenophobic.
Yes,
Let's face it,
yeah.
slightly xenophobic. But nobody minds you being xenophobic about Spaniards,
No.
Apart from
from Spanish.
Spanish people.
which is,
obviously.
that is odd, isn't it? Yeah.
It's strange where they should feel that way. So several ideas channeling along there, and Red Dwarf galloped ahead of the others because it seemed the most viable.
Dave Hollins.
Dave
yeah,
Hollins.
and it's sort of, well, it's, hey, it's a classic situation for a sitcom. It's people trapped in an environment who don't get on.
But at this point, it was just Dave Hollins
One in his computer.
and his computer. So we needed more people. So we thought, well, let's
Well,
get new characters.
And was
Yeah,
Dave
and
Hollins,
what we wanted to do was have him as the last human being alive, so we couldn't have any other humans.
That's right.
right? And Dave Hollins effectively is Lister, is what we're saying.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Just changed his name to Dave Lister.
Dave Lister. Yes.
Kept the Dave.
For
Yes.
some.
Kept the Dave.
And it was only because Dave Hollins was a footballer, a Chelsea.
Oh yes,
Sure he
he
was.
wasn't he? Yeah.
So Dave Hollins was a footballer. So Hollins changed to Lister.
Well, that was partly.
Can we just talk about names just for 2 seconds
Yeah.
here? Because there was a kid in our class called Lister.
Yes.
And people say, where did you get these names from? And Rimmer. Unfortunately, there's a slight connotation, although we genuinely didn't know this at the time. And apparently some guy on the internet whose nickname is Ace Rimmer got a lot of calls that he didn't particularly want. You can probably work that out.
Oh, right. Oh, right.
We'll probably have to cut this out, but yeah.
We'll do an X-ray.
Yes. So right.
Sorry, I've completely thrown everything with that story. I should
Yeah,
have
so,
just,
yes,
Right,
they
start
were
again.
all, the names came from our classmates, because
Yeah.
we wanted it to sound like a believable group of people, and rather than make up every name,
Yeah, it's a drag.
it's a track. We use the names, though not the characters.
Not the
if
characters.
anybody's lawyer is listening.
Yes, and not the Christian names,
No.
just the surnames.
Boy, you were very litigationally sort of secure and knowledgeable as students.
Oh, we did, yeah. Oh, look, we've been sued. Oh.
Right. So that's the names came from classmates. Right. So where
So there
did
was a Rimmer, yeah.
where did
And
Smeg
Kachansky
where did
was
Smeg
the
come
school
from?
bully.
Was a school bully.
Kachansky was a school bully.
Yeah.
And there was somebody really called Kachansky.
Yeah.
Conrad Kachansky.
Conrad Kachansky. Right. Now this naturally leads us on to Smeghead. Where did this come from?
We were looking for an expletive,
A new swear word.
because you can't duplicate natural speech, especially with the kind of low-life characters we were dealing with, without using expletive in the language. And Porridge had naff.
Naff, yeah.
And we thought we wanted to invent a futuristic curse word which had the right sort of consonant and vowel arrangement to make it sound like a genuine
Swear word.
swear word.
Go on. This is interesting. This is a fascinating
This is
story.
fascinating.
Yes,
I'm
it is.
absolutely hooked. My mouth is.
Absolutely.
It's,
There
it's
is lots
interesting as well because just the way you are actually in a corner here. Look, you can see there's a wall there and there's a wall there. It's in a corner both physically and metaphorically.
And so we tried many combinations. of vowels and consonants.
Yeah.
And we had goit,
We had goit,
which we used in a different,
Yeah.
and then gimboid,
and gimboid.
And yours?
and smeghead.
Yes.
Felt very good.
It did feel good. We felt that worked, didn't it? And by jingo, it has.
It has.
And it was lasted terribly well. And
Do you know there's a company, a Swedish company
Called Smeg.
who they do white goods, electrical goods. So you can have a Smeg dishwasher, which I don't know about you.
Or yes, a Smeg cooking
And then
blender.
you know there are people who think it has a linkage to an existing word,
That's rubbish, of course.
which is
Yes, and we're not going to, even entertain that ridiculous thought. It's the same thing as any connotations being to the name Rimmer.
Actually, there is a derivation. It's Greek. Is it Greek or where it means clean?
really
Yeah, I think
that's
so.
the Greeks for you.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Hooray for the Greeks.
Yeah,
So that's the genesis of that, and then the script eventually was written. It was passed around. Initially, it was picked up and was going to be co-produced. by
Well, I remember
Paul
actually
Jackson.
before that we were building the characters around because we thought one man and his computer isn't going to be enough to he needs someone else to talk to,
That's right.
and we didn't want living humans,
Yep.
and that's where the idea of the hologram came from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, had there been any reference to a hologram before then? I mean, was this? In the science fiction genre, had holograms been wandering around?
Not to my knowledge.
No.
So
Not
this
to my
came.
current knowledge. I mean,
So this is something that came from you guys because now Star Trek has
that's right.
like holograms.
Well, yeah, we yes, they do, don't they?
So on. I wondered, yes. Gene Roddenberry is listening.
So hard like. How does that work then?
And then, so what we didn't want to do a robot. I remember that.
Yes, we don't want to do a
Because we
robot
felt
because that was too cliched,
yeah,
and everyone had a
we
robot.
sort
You
of
had the cute robot. What a stupid idea to have one of those.
Yeah.
God,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And subsequently, of course, had one straight away. But then
They held out till-
they held up to series.
And then we had
series
the
three.
cat.
Had the cat, yes, which was
A fine
We were
idea.
very worried about whether or not to keep that in. Do you remember? It was.
it was too.
We wrote the pilot very quickly over the course of a week, except for the
Yeah,
cat bit,
well.
which we were very iffy
Yeah,
about.
we couldn't work out how he spoke, could we?
No.
Whether he spoke to people or whether he just sort
Talked
of
to himself.
slinked around and was
Yeah.
killed and
And whether it was just
trained himself a lot.
too left field an idea altogether. We were very nervous about it, and we showed it a few people, and they went wild.
Yeah, in fact, it was your brother and Will.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They said fantastic,
Mm.
and I went out and got a cat. On the
What,
basis
for
of-
research purposes.
Yes, I got a cat who's still.
What, you were
there.
hoping it would suddenly turn into something.
No, I wanted to watch her.
Right. Fair enough. Very good. Very impressed. So holograms came from within yourselves, as indeed the cat metamorphosis, and so you then had the two companions and the
Well,
computer.
from that
Do
point-
any research for Smeghead?
No.
Sorry, I just
That
you
was a
bought the
trick question,
cat.
everybody.
I just wondered.
I killed a few people. See if that,
See if that worked.
that was good. And actually, from the basis of having those characters set up, the show, sort of, the story told itself, really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it had to. We
Yeah.
had to get those bunch of people together somehow.
And the first thing we wanted to do was we wanted to write a completely different start. So we had the ship fully crewed and everything. And then, so we could kill them all off. And we wanted to get really big stars.
Yeah, Ronnie Barker.
And Sean Connery's the captain.
Yeah, we were really grounded. We knew.
Yeah.
Yeah. We thought it'd be great, and so you'd have Red Dwarf. It would have Ronnie Barker and all these famous people in, and so people would presume that was what the series was going to be about, and then we kill them all off.
Halfway through.
Yeah, and just have these four little people that you saw in the.
Do you think perhaps that Ronnie Barker and Sean Connery may not have spotted that in the script? Or...
Yeah, but
Were you
we thought
hoping
that they would do it because.
It was us.
Yeah,
Right.
we just thought we didn't.
Sure.
What? Why wouldn't they do it? Why wouldn't they do it? Because oh
Because
boy,
it would be great.
it'd be great. Don't you get it? Yeah, yeah,
So
Anyway,
that's why the first show is like it is, really.
yeah. That's right.
Except that Sean Connery isn't in it. But then the first show, the script was picked up effectively, and the appropriate word is picked up and run with John Lloyd and Paul Jackson together at one stage, independently at one stage, and then not at all, and then eventually
At one time, Spitting Image were going to
Spitting Image
produce it as part of a
yes,
deal
they
we
were.
were trying to strike with them.
Yeah.
But,
But that was sort of, they were doing it as a punishment. You know, we didn't really feel that they were behind it.
No, it was real, like a real favour.
Yeah, they were doing it. A big favour to us.
Yeah. It was, if you keep writing, we'll even produce this bit of crud. That's our commitment, That's how behind you we are.
So, yes, then you wrote the script, presumably, in its first draft form, and you took it to the BBC going, yeah, let's make this, presumably.
Actually, we sent it off to Paul Jackson and John Lloyd, didn't we? And we were working with John on Spitting Image, and we worked with Paul on Carrot's Lib. And I remember John read it first, and he left a message on the answer machine to say he'd really enjoyed it and thought it was very good. And then Paul read it a few weeks later because he was very busy. And also our agent told him that John had read it and liked it, and he better hurry up and read it, or else John might make it.
I remember, yeah.
So Paul read it and he liked it, and then for a while they were actually going to do some crazy co-production deal where they were both going to do it. So we then thought, it's just a matter of nanoseconds before the thing gets made. Paul took it into the BBC, and they rejected it instantly, didn't they?
Yes, and I don't think they got all the way through it before they rejected it.
Yeah.
Now, who was, who was in charge of the BBC at that stage? Who then, when you took it to them?
I think
Is this Gareth Quinlan? At this
it could have
stage?
been. It could have been Gareth
We don't
Quinlan.
wanna name
It could have been.
names.
We don't want to
We don't
name
wanna name
names
names,
because
although you
But
actually
it was
there's no pleasure
GG.
in
Revenge is a
and
okay, so
saying
we
you were
retaliate.
wrong, Gareth. I mean, I don't get any pleasure from that.
right. Okay, so we won't mention it was Gareth Quinlan.
It wasn't. No.
Certainly.
So, and we also won't mention, of course, you then used his name as an insult in one of the early episodes
Yes,
of The Dwarf.
That was
you,
coincidence, though,
Gwendolyn.
wasn't it?
That was. It just sounded nice.
Yeah.
Just sounded like,
It was
sounded
actually a
handy.
different Gwendolyn.
So, this bloke who wasn't Gareth Quinlan then said to you, when you presented the script, I believe he had some
No,
sort
we
of...
heard sort of third hand, didn't we? Second hand, they rejected it, and then Paul, I think, sent it back and said, "Are you sure you've read it?"
And they said yes.
Yes,
we read-
absolutely.
Sure, we read all of it. Thank you.
And we still don't want it.
They also said we were sketch writers, didn't they?
Yeah.
We were working for Spitting Image, and this was sort of sketch writers trying to write a comedy series. When
You always get that though. When we were working in radio, we moved into television. We were radio writers.
But I'm trying to eke towards a story that I heard about how Gareth
About French
Quinlan
windows.
said that it couldn't be made because it wasn't in line with what he thought a comedy was.
Yeah, so the third rejection we got from the BBC, we went in personally to see Gareth Quinlan. Doug and I went in there, and there he was with his loafers. He was a guy who never trust a guy who wears loafers or slacks.
Right.
they were white.
They were white loafers.
White loafers and
loafers
slacks.
and pastel blue slacks.
Right.
And so we knew we were in trouble, and right from there, get go. So then we said, well, are you absolutely sure you've read it, Gareth, and why don't you want to do it? And he gave us something about science fiction and people not liking science fiction.
And he was actually, he was right. He was right. He was right when he said there's a huge prejudice and people don't want science fiction and don't like science fiction. In many ways, I think that's right. Sure, you look at all the best-selling movies of all time; they're all science fiction. Okay, just let's wipe that aside.
Yes.
And you look at Doctor Who, and you look at Star Wars and
Star Trek.
Star Trek.
and
Yeah.
Star Trek.
So you're saying he was right within the confines of his own office?
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But if you just say, okay, well, let's ignore
All those
those things at the moment,
Yeah.
and just look at what else is there, I don't think you've got very much, have you? I mean, obviously, Back to the Future and
Close Encounters of the Third
Babylon
Kind.
5.
Yeah. And all those science fiction films.
I know those science fiction
Yeah.
films. But apart from that,
Yeah, nobody likes it.
It's
people
generally
don't like
unliked,
it.
Yeah.
So he said to you, a comedy is a sofa.
No, what he said was, we over the course of this meeting, we sort of got him thinking that perhaps with all those things that we weren't mentioning, that science fiction might be successful in some small way to some people. And we got him to the point where he said, you're probably right. A science fiction comedy might not be a bad idea, he said, but I think people will be very uncomfortable with it being on a spaceship. And what you should do is you should start with the opening shot of a sofa and then pull back, and you should have French windows. And then you pull back and you realise these are all on a spaceship. And so you ease people gradually in this surreal way.
Right.
Yes. The point he was making.
Actually, it's not a bad idea.
This would help people relate to the situation. Obviously, they couldn't relate to people just being on a spaceship
Because no one's ever been on one, have they?
Right.
Well,
like
Neil
20
Armstrong.
people.
Neil Armstrong.
20 people.
Right. Yeah, 20 people. Yeah.
Right. So the idea was that it's sort of like a domestic situation comedy. So like the vicar's there and having tea and everything, and you pull out through French windows to whacking a great spaceship.
No, I think once you've got your French windows and your sofa, you could then have androids going completely ape, lasering people to death. That would be fine. But people go up, French windows,
I'm
fine. I know where we are. We know we are. French windows, fine, no problem.
Marvellous.
So we were commissioned then, weren't we, for a science fiction comedy series?
That's right, and I remember he said, I'm going to commission you, boys. I'm going to send you away and I'll commission you for a science fiction comedy series, and I want you to write it for me. And Doug picked up the script, and I couldn't believe it. The balls. He slung it down, he said, and there it is, Gareth.
And he said, there's no French windows in this.
Not that one.
Not that one, another one. And in fact, we did get money. We were paid.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, we were paid money.
No, we weren't.
No, that's...
to write this thing, and we've
get the
never
lawyer
written
in.
it. So we owe the BBC, money. We didn't even write a sentence of it, did we?
No, we didn't even write the title.
No.
No, and so we went away and we were thoroughly discouraged, really.
Yeah.
And then we got a phone call. We were working away on something, I can't remember, and I got a phone call from Paul Jackson who said, I probably think I may possibly have an opportunity.
Possibly, maybe.
To do Red Dwarf at the BBC. I thought, how? And he said, up in BBC Manchester. And I was thinking, oh my God, it's going to be a regional programme with a budget of 3 and 6pence.
Yeah. Local news in the middle.
10 minutes after the news.
Break off now to...
And can you mention Salford?
Yeah, a lot of,
But, no, what it was he'd done Filthy Rich and Catflap up there, which had a really crap director on it, actually.
Yeah, who was that bloke? Actually, he directed it.
He did the incest, didn't he?
He did the incest.
Yes.
He did the boring bits that Paul Jackson didn't want to do.
You did the
You did the taxi
rather
and the
moody.
Irwell shot.
I did the moody stuff
Moody
because
pub
I was
stuff.
trying to shoot it in a science fiction way because I
Right.
wanted to get the
Right.
the up and coming project.
You had that in mind.
Yeah, I did.
And so he'd done Filthy Rich and Catflap up there, and they sort of had a hole in their schedule to do Ben Elton's next series.
That's right. They'd also done Thompson, haven't they? The Emma Thompson
Yes,
series.
the Emma Thompson
series.
Farrago.
Yeah.
And so they actually had a slot, a national slot, which was allocated to because somebody at the BBC decided that was a good thing to do for the regions, that they should have access to a national slot. And Ben had decided not to write this new series for whatever reason. I think he was, writing an opera or a play or something, a ballet.
Because he also did Happy Families before that, yeah?
That's right.
Right.
Yes.
That's right. He did Happy Families, and then he did Filthy Rich and
That's
Catflap.
right.
And then he did something else.
Then he did
Not in
something
Manchester.
else.
So we leapt into his slot.
So we had a slot there, but it was never like, yes, we're going on. It was like for weeks and months this dragged on. And Paul saying, well, nobody's stopping. And we were constantly expecting someone to slap down on the show. Oh, no, we are the BBC Comedy Police.
Yeah, we know what you're up to.
Reason to
You've been
believe.
rejected,
3 times
Yeah.
officially.
Yeah.
And so, but we'd actually written the pilot in '83.
Was that when he was?
And we were scheduled to actually shoot it in '87.
And we had the offer of making it into a film on 4, didn't we, in the middle?
Yeah.
And we said no.
Yes, rather bravely.
It was pretty brave, actually.
Yes, because we were utterly broke.
Yeah.
And
Yes, I remember this now. So then you met Paul Jackson in a pub. That's where I met you both. And they said, oh, Ed's really into this. And you looked at me in that glazed expression like, who's this total prat?
well, we knew you from.
because of Cara and Cara's Lib and
You
Three
hadn't
of Kind.
directed any of those. Oh, but I told you I had. That's right.
And casting. Can you remember anything about casting?
Oh yeah, everyone always asks about that. Yeah, I know that we were absolutely convinced, because the stuff that was around at the time was Blackadder and Young Ones, and we didn't want to go down that route of casting comedy people in it.
No, we didn't want comedy people. No.
We wanted real actors.
No, we didn't want anyone funny. And so...
Real actors.
Real actors.
And that's an interesting point. We should hit that point by point, because first, Craig Charles plays Lister very successfully. But when he was first up for the part, as far as I remember, he was a sort of avant-garde poet who could blow smoke out of his ear. And
Yeah.
that sort of...
Hey, come
that
on,
was
don't
sort
know
of-
that. Yeah.
I was impressed by the smoke out
It's
of
a
the
hell
ear.
of a skill. He could have done really well. I mean, even just with that. Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, because I remember watching him on Saturday Live thinking, don't like you. Too angry. And then meeting him, I was absolutely charmed.
He probably was one of the first people we auditioned who didn't intimidate us, because we were auditioning people like Alan Rickman. Remember that?
Yeah.
And we were all
well,
his.
Alan wouldn't audition, would he?
Well, he wouldn't read.
He wouldn't read, and we
Didn't he read? I thought he
no,
read.
we went to the pub.
No, he had a drink. He was
We
prepared to have a pint. But
We
he
had to
didn't.
have a pint and discuss which part he wanted.
Well, he wanted to play both parts. Actually.
He did, actually.
And then we discussed where it should be shot, and I remember thinking, oh, okay. And then...
And eventually he did. We sneaked a little reading out of him in the pub
Oh, that's
after a
right,
couple of
we
pints,
did.
and he read
Right.
rather strange.
I remember him saying it was the best script he'd received in whatever it was the last couple of months.
Yes, but he had a large bang on the head that morning.
I don't think he received any scripts in the last. And
Yeah, and Fred Molina was interested in doing Rimmer,
yeah,
That's true.
and that would have been
very interesting. Yeah,
a different show, wouldn't it?
I mean, you know, that would have certainly... We could have scuppered his film career for him.
I think we could have happily scuppered both the films.
Yes, no being thrown out of windows by Bruce Willis for them.
Yeah.
No, absolutely
Yeah.
not. No. It's funny though how much luck has got to do with it, because I think if we'd have gone for either of them, we would have done maybe 1 or 2 series, and that would have been it.
They'd have been off, yeah.
Yeah.
They'd have been off. We wouldn't have been able to do any more, and that would have been it. Did, and it's sort of like we have been quite well protected in that sense. I mean, just by
Because none of our
pure
casts ever work.
luck.
They have no work.
But that's to me. I mean, I think that's brilliant casting.
Do you remember we also auditioned? We auditioned quite a few people. We saw, I think, half of London, and we auditioned David Baddiel.
Yes,
At
we
one
did.
point.
And he had a really crazy haircut, didn't he?
Crazy hair.
Yeah,
Yes.
crazy
could,
haircut.
he could have been a member of the Cure.
Yes, he could. He could. I remember. Yeah.
Yes, he was...
Hugh Laurie.
Hugh Laurie.
Yeah.
My goodness me.
Yeah.
Why did we not have Hugh again?
too tall.
Too tall.
Yeah, I couldn't...
Yeah.
I remember it wouldn't work shot-wise. He was just too tall.
Right.
Manchester didn't have high enough sets.
And I
for him.
bought that, didn't I?
Yeah.
The only one we were absolutely sure about was Norman at the beginning. That was the only one we had an idea when we said we want Norman Lovett to play Holly,
Yeah.
and we didn't have a clue, did we? Who was that guy? Who...
Actually, Norman came into audition for Rimmer, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Yeah. Yes, he did. But was that because we wanted him to play Holly and he wanted to play Rimmer?
As I recall,
'Cause
at the time, Holly wasn't much of a part at all. It wasn't even a comedy part.
He wasn't,
It wasn't on
envisioned.
screen.
He wasn't
on
as
screen,
comedy
no.
part, and he wasn't on screen. And but we wanted Norman. We were absolutely sure we did that. Why was that? Because we thought he was funny. Because we'd seen him in Edinburgh and thought he was just fantastic.
He's so
Oh,
funny.
he is.
He was sort of like deadpan Hal at that stage.
Yes,
again,
and it
wasn't
was sort of a
Yeah.
yeah.
And he played us and played us to put him on screen. He was saying, "You're wasting my assets."
So we shot like 3 shows, didn't we? Before we said, "Oh, let's go back and re-record and stick him on
Yeah,
screen." All that he's dead, Dave. Bit.
Yeah. Well, what we did was, I think, because we had another slot of 7 and we never wrote that 7th script. Actually, we did, because we changed one of the scripts in between the first set of rehearsals and the second one. We threw out a script.
It was show 2, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And took some of the 3 or 4 good gags
Bits
in
from
that and stuck it in
Yeah.
the other show.
What was that script about then? The one
Well,
that was
I
never made?
actually, this is very strange. I came across it about 3 weeks ago, just going through some papers.
Oh yeah, and
It's
What's
all right.
it? Is it?
It's not as bad as I recalled it. Yeah.
I actually found a scene of where Lister's pregnant
Oh, that.
somewhere, and that wasn't bad either.
No, just one scene though, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
it was just like it was chickened out.
Yeah.